Hey there, Go community, and welcome to episode 278 of The Gaming Outsider. This week, CB and I welcome back Chris Owens so we can discuss the many game delays that took place this week and how we feel about devs delaying games so often. We also have a ton of rumors to talk about in news, and we're going to have a few new games to talk about, including Ring Fit Adventure, Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey, Disguiser of Fate, and a little platformer called Potata. Yeah, you heard me right. Potata. This is The Gaming Outsider. Greetings, programs, and welcome to episode 278 of The Gaming Outsider, a video game podcast with a focus on our incredible community. It's Monday, January 20th. I'm your host, Scott Clark, and I'm joined, as always, by my fellow co-hosts. First off, a guy who just can't stop buying games for his video game collection, Mr. Chris Behrensmeyer.
Yeah, I know. How you doing, bud? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I just, every day, like, look what I picked up today. Look what I picked up today. Look what I picked up today.
Dude, it's been a hot streak lately.
Apparently.
Normally it doesn't start hitting until like the beginning of garage sale season, but for some reason Christmas is coming early this year.
Apparently. Well, I'm happy for you. I'm a tad jealous because I'm out of funds. I will not be able to add to my collection for quite a while. I got to get a few more DJ gigs under my belt before I can start spending money again.
And to think, Midwest Gaming Classic hasn't even like shown up yet.
You almost said Quasic.
Quasic. It's stuck Quasic.
Midwest Gaming Classic. Well, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. If you haven't figured it out already, unfortunately, Zach will not be joining us tonight. He took the night off, but we've got another member from the Elite Eight of the Gaming Outsider community, a guy who was one of the few who did not give me crap about the Packers not making it to the Super Bowl this year, Mr. Chris Owens.
You have no idea how much I'm suppressing that, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why. Your team didn't even make it to the playoffs, so, you know, trash talk is, I don't get how you trash talk in that situation, but...
Okay, here we go. I enjoyed every single minute of the thrashing that your team had, and in the words of Jerry Seinfeld, that's a shame.
That's a shame. Each munching your popcorn. How you been, man? We haven't had you on in quite a while. What you been up to?
Life is getting in the way. Microsoft is keeping me very busy on the IT front, but I'm glad I could take the evening and join you guys on our wonderful creation known as The Gaming Outsider.
Yeah, we're creeping up on 300 here, guys. We're like 22 episodes away from 300. That's a lot of episodes.
That's going to be, I say, right around July.
Does that mean we're going to have you post in some like red Speedos with some spray on like abs?
No.
At minimum.
300, we should do like a live. We should do something live, like where we get all 8 of us together, like we did on the first time we all got together.
It's got to be like special ed type special, man. You just got to put it all together.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to be there,
of course. No, I think we should discuss this, but I think a round table again would be wonderful.
Round table, maybe invite some listeners to come join in with us. We got to get multiple mics though if we're going to make that happen.
Well, yeah, we can make it happen.
It'd be fun. I think we should do it.
All right.
I'm looking forward to it.
You heard it here first.
If it's in July, it makes
it... Well, that's... Scott, that is the first rumor of the night.
The first rumor?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you want to jump into it right away?
Oh, it's got to happen, man.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the week's news. Well, Chris mentioned it. We're going to be talking about a lot of rumors on this episode because Zach's not here. Zach hates to talk about rumors. There was not a whole lot happening in the news world this week, so we're talking exclusively about rumors, although there is one quick thing. Children of Morta is now available on Xbox Game Pass, so my favorite game of 2019. Please go play that game. Now you guys have no excuse. Go play it. Go play it. Go play it. Go play it. You play it. You play it. You play it. Game is so good.
Reviews are not supposed to be before the news.
I know. But the news is that it's now available on Game Pass. You can actually even play it on PC as well for free if you subscribe to the service anyway. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the rumors. The first one, circle around Nintendo. The rumors, if they're true, say again, this is not fact. This is all completely rumors that are floating around the internet, but they're too interesting not to talk about. First one, we're supposed to get a new 2D Metroid. The Metroid Prime trilogy could be coming on Switch, and we could be getting a new Paper Mario game. These come from quote-unquote trusted sources. The 2D Metroid game would be a sequel to Metroid Fusion, which is a severely underrated game. That game was fantastic. The Metroid Prime trilogy was spotted on a website called Instant Gaming, and it says on that site that it was to release sometime in 2020. And the Paper Mario sequel, again, if the rumors are true, would be a return to its JRPG roots as opposed to the, Super Paper Mario? I think it was the one that was more of a platformy. So what do you guys think? Any of these tantalize you at all, or do you think there's any validity to them?
I mean, I'm down for some new Nintendo IPs. What was it? The last Paper Mario was 2016 with
it was Color Splash.
Yeah, Color
right?
Splash.
Color Splash, yep.
And then the last Metroid was Samus Returns in 2017. So,
and that was a remake technically, even though it was kind of a remake in the realm of like Resident Evil 2 is a remake. It's not the exact same map and controls are different, but
yeah, so I mean it's been a little bit, and I feel that a return to those two franchises wouldn't be a bad thing. So,
well, especially with, Metroid Prime 4 on the horizon, it makes perfect sense, number one, to release the trilogy on Switch, which I'm going to have a really hard time not playing those games again because except for the second one. The second one sucks. But the first and the third one were both fantastic. And I love 2D Metroid games. I mean, that's why we call them Metroidvanias is for that reason. The idea of a new one, especially a sequel to Fusion, I'm 100% down.
Yeah. And, well, I did not play Color Splash, so I'm not really familiar with that one. I think the last Paper Mario I touched was Thousand Year Door. So
that game was so good. The writing in that game was fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel that it's about time for another Paper Mario, especially because that is a widely liked series.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten the JRPG Mario games from the Mario and Luigi games that were on 3DS, and those were good. But there's just something I miss about the aesthetic of Paper Mario. Turning it into paper and the blocking and everything was just felt so good. But Owens, you were a fan. I know you loved Super Paper Mario, right? Which
I really did. That's one that I could not put down until it was finished. And the funny thing is, I didn't play the 7 Stars or the Thousand Year Door. Super Paper Mario was my first of the series to be played. So I don't know better, as it were, if it were to go back to the JRPG format. Of course, I have an SNES Classic. I have 7 Stars on it, and it's been my every intention to pick it up and play it. And with this on the horizon, let me just say I might lose my anti-Switch rep that I've been known for because the door is starting to swing towards the Switch's direction.
Nice.
Even my wife wants one.
Ooh.
So that's like, okay, doors open, here we go.
Go for it, man.
So, well, with this news, it only helps that cause because, as you noted, CB, and you too, Scott, that I love the series. Color Splash was a drop-off from Super Paper Mario, but to see it lean back towards those roots, and again, not in an area of the series that I'm familiar with, and I love Metroid as well, Scott. The last game I borrowed from you was Metroid Fusion, and that's another one I couldn't put down until it was finished.
That's the last game you borrowed from me?
Well, you wanted it back so fast, I didn't have a choice. So, and yes, I finished games. So to hear that coming across the waves too would be pretty nice.
Just understand that the original Paper Mario games were vastly different from Super Paper Mario, which was more or less a platformer. And I'm not knocking the game, even though I didn't like it nearly as much. Paper Mario is a turn-based role-playing game.
Oh, I know. I've seen video. I've seen footage. Like I said, I have it on my Classic. I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet, but I think being that I don't know better that way, it'd be nice to see the pendulum swing the other direction if I'm fresh to it.
Okay. But the 7 Stars, the Super Mario RPG, that's more of a hardcore RPG, like along the lines of like a Final Fantasy. It's got some pretty in-depth stuff going on in there. Paper Mario is, I'm not going to say it's not a poor man's RPG. It's just a very RPG light. Like the numbers are very small. The swapping out of stuff is simpler, and I don't mean that in a bad way whatsoever. It's just not nearly as complex. It's almost like a good gateway JRPG. But the one on Super Nintendo that you're referring to is a freaking fantastic game. The writing is snappy and hilarious. You get introduced to some new characters, and you get to have Bowser in your party, which at the time was awesome.
Well, that was so cool about Super Paper Mario because you had everybody, including Bowser, and I'm not going to spoil at the end who you fight, but that's pretty intense too.
Is it a spoiler that you fight Bowser? Is that what you're not telling us?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
More shocking than that.
All right. Well, I mean, fighting Bowser wouldn't be shocking, but I get your point. And
right.
I don't know if you have access to a 64, but those Paper Mario games actually hold up pretty well because the graphics are very, how do you describe them, CB?
Boxy?
Because aren't they like that cell shade kind?
Yeah, they're kind of like a cell shading thing that just translates very well. And the gameplay's great. And those games don't require a ton of dexterity. You have some in the battle system because that was one of the first games. I mean, I think Legend of Dragoon is the first one that did it, where you have to actually time, your hits and time your defense and stuff like that. Paper Mario started doing that, and that's where I really fell in love with that combat.
I was to say I'm really good at that mechanic, so that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, it's not quite as complicated as the Mario and Luigi games where you've got two different buttons and you have to hit the right one, and it's just time it right and you're good. So gives you a little bit of an edge on those combats, and it's a lot of fun. So all right. So of those three, which would you want the most?
The Metroid Prime trilogy.
Okay.
I'd say the 2D Metroid.
I would say I'd probably say the 2D Metroid as well, but a new Paper Mario JRPG sounds very exciting as well too. But we're due for a 2D Metroid. That's not a remake. So, well, moving on with the rumors. More Spider-Man 2 rumors started floating around this week, and here's what we know, or what someone has claimed that they know. Someone from inside Insomniac. So again, take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But according to the rumor, and I think it was 4chan or something like that, the game will be open world, but it will include Queens and Brooklyn this time around. It will have Peter Parker training Miles Morales. It will have supporting cast members, including Flash Thompson and Harry Osborn. The story will have something to do with Oscorp in doing some kind of cloning. And the villains being looked at for possibilities are Cardiac, Carnage, Green Goblin, the Lizard, Mysterio, and Venom. And the target release date would be holiday 2021. Now, again, this is all hearsay. I was hoping that Zach was going to be here to comment on this because he knows this stuff pretty well, but CB does as well. But what do you guys think? Any credence to any of this?
Well, the fact that obviously the rumor pushes it out to holiday 2021, we're talking next gen.
Mm-hmm.
And for how good it looked, played, story, the whole shebang on PS4. Sadly, I'm not going to own a PS5 right away, let alone if I'm going to have it in time for this release. But Spider-Man is by far my favorite PS4 game. I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn yet, so don't judge. It's like keep the angry comments. And I'd be curious to see how this does on a higher platform system.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely could see this having some merit to it, especially with the fact that now, I mean, we have Spider-Man, which was one of the best-selling games on the PS4. You knew that there was going to be a follow-up. With the fact that they're mentioning Venom, Carnage, and Flash Thompson, all three of those characters tied together. Green Goblin, I could believe. I mean, I can't really remember how much that played into the first one, but if you're going to include Harry Osborn, I'm surprised they don't throw like Hobgoblin out there. Lizard and Mysterio, obvious choices. The one that kind of surprised me is Cardiac, because
I don't even know that villain.
Cardiac isn't exactly a main tier. More falls in the line with like Shocker, Electro.
Okay.
So, but it's a cool character, and if they do it, I'd be very happy. The way Spider-Man ended, the whole thing with Miles Morales is an obvious, like, you know that's going to be part of the next game.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they've already got the main hub of the game, so just adding on like Queens and Brooklyn shouldn't be that hard for what they want to do. Granted, you're effectively doubling the play area of that game. So
that's a good point.
But Oscorp and cloning, that one kind of, I'm not 100% sure on that one. So,
well, here's my take on the whole thing. And actually, Zach had made a comment on Discord when someone posted this rumor earlier, and I actually thought the same thing. This is coming from a guy that doesn't know a whole lot about Spider-Man outside of the movies and the video games, but this felt like someone that played the first game, knew how it ended, and took a bunch of stuff that everybody knows from Spider-Man and said, this is what it's going to be about. So outside of Cardiac, which is one that I've never heard of, but, Carnage, we know, was hinted at in the last Spider-Man movie. Green Goblin obviously was in a Spider-Man movie. Lizard was in a Spider-Man movie. Mysterio was in a Spider-Man movie. The end, well, I can't really... I can't speak on that without getting into spoilery stuff, but this one I have a hard time buying that this person's actually legitimately knowing some information. This one smells fishy to me.
Well, especially with as early as that game would be in development as well. I'm willing to bet they probably want to have like a basic idea of what they want to move forward with. Mm-hmm. And then kind of flesh out like, okay, we're going to do Queens and Brooklyn, add them in. But as far as like, it does seem to be somewhat valid with the fact that like, okay, they just have a very limited knowledge of like, these are the villains they're thinking about. These are some of the other prime characters they're thinking about. So
that sounds like it's not even off the storyboard yet.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like everything that I'm reading here, it seems very base storyboard, but I do kind of agree with what Zach was saying over the fact that it's like, oh, we looked at how this game ended, what's popular in the comics, where do we think it's going to move to next? So, I mean, there is some validity to it, but again, it is highly rumor. So.
Right.
Would I like to see all these things in that game? Yes, very much so. But at the same time, I'd like to see them flesh out something somewhat new. Because if you look at how the first Spider-Man game played out, that had some ties to the comics and the lore and the history, but it wasn't a like word for word adaptation of the comic.
Yeah, it wasn't a slave to the comics.
So
and I like that about it. And I think it's kind of brilliant how they brought in Miles Morales, because that fixes the issue of, well, how do you make Spider-Man start from the ground up again? He's acquired all those powers by the end of the first game. How do you start over without pulling, a Metroid, where at the beginning of every Metroid game you get all of your abilities and stuff stripped away from you?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do that. That just seems cheap and like an outdated thing. But if we're actually playing as Miles, he's going to be starting from the ground up. And so maybe you're not playing as Peter, you're playing as Miles. And, Peter is your mentor, and you fight alongside him in some missions. I'm hoping you don't have to like rescue him or get him untangled and stuff that often. But
I'm willing to bet that's if they're including Miles Morales, the cloning thing from Oscorp, I'm willing to bet how this game resets is going to be different than how you think it is.
Okay. So you think they're going to clone Peter Parker and you play as Peter Parker?
I don't think Peter Parker's going to survive the first act.
Ooh, interesting.
Wow, that's bold.
Because if you're going to reset, he's going to have to be captured or killed and is the subject of cloning, and Miles Morales is going to have to essentially stop it or save Peter in the long haul of the game.
Interesting. Well, we're so far off from that game even being announced, much less released. I mean, holiday 2021 makes sense for a game that's going to be that huge. So
it'll get delayed.
Well, we're going to get there. We're going to talk about delays here in the near future. But again, rumors are flying this week. Then we got one more left to talk about. Bioshock 4 has been heavily hinted with some new information this week. This is a lot of this isn't new because we knew that a new Bioshock was coming. You know, a new team. It's not being done by Ken Levine. We talked about that in the past. But some new potential information came to light this week that said the next game in the series might be open world. There was a job listing for a, quote, lead world designer that appeared online this week. And the job listing says that responsibilities for the position include, again, quote, editorial oversight on world layout, design of world content, and the detailed systems design of world population and event management. So that could be a clue that this could be an open world game as opposed to a linear experience that we're used to. But the game is still in very early development, and an official announcement is supposed to be sometime this winter. What do you guys think about the possibility of Bioshock being an open world?
Yeah, that's an easy pick there. If they continue off the end of Infinite, it is so easy to make this an open world game because you have. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you know just as well as I do, Scott, about how the end of Infinite with that whole area, that makes it super easy to make an open world game because all you'd have to do is be like, pick this door, pick this door, pick this door.
Hub and spoke, like Zach says.
So, but with that, it makes it for a very interesting concept for the game because it could be like you have to go save alternate versions of little sisters in this hub and spoke area and essentially stop certain things from happening. So
yeah, I get that. I'm seriously hoping though that, you know, if it is what you're saying and you go in these different doors, that those doors still feel like Bioshock levels. Because Bioshock to me, we say linear experience, but it was still maze-like. It was still, you had to figure out where to go. It wasn't just like a corridor shooter. You know, like, I can't even think of one for right now. It's been a while since I've played one. I don't consider Bioshock to be a corridor shooter where you're just going in one direction and never having to search and all that kind of stuff. That's what I love about Bioshock games.
Well, and the other thing I like about it is the fact that it does open up the ability to go back to Rapture or every time that Columbia. So, but you could have Rapture, Columbia, an alternate version of Rapture, or an alternate version of Columbia, because the way that ending's set up, you could easily do that. Say flip-flop, have Rapture in the sky and Columbia underwater, or you could do Rapture under a volcano, or instead of the United States, instead of Rapture being created because the United States or other countries was so against it that the entire United States becomes that way.
Yeah, the possibilities are really endless with the way that Infinite finished off. I'm just beyond excited. I just really hope it delivers. Well, I really do.
Especially with the alternate versions of Liz's character.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because you see there's 6 or 7 different versions of her. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you clearly understand that there's the connection to the end game area. And that just opens okay, something happens, pulls them all back into their original worlds, and you have to go save them.
I like it. Although I do kind of like how fresh Columbia felt after Rapture. We were underwater. Now we're in the sky. I kind of looked forward to the next Bioshock game taking us somewhere new. And I guess that still could be. I just don't want. I don't want it to be all derivative of the last 3.
Bioshock on the moon.
That would be awesome. I would take that. Owens, what do you think?
I'm afraid that it would hopefully not take it too open, like a Witcher open or a Fallout open. I think there is a limit that you want to get to the openness. Otherwise, it's a completely different identifying game no matter where you put it.
I agree.
Because gamers are used to the search and destroy A and B. Search and find, search and destroy, however you want to put it. But you put them out without a lot of direction like those Fallout and Witcher games are, then the essence of Bioshock and its environments are compromised, and I don't want to see that happen.
I agree. I don't want fetch quests. Although, that's not right. The fetch quests were in Bioshock, but they were, relevant to the main story. I don't want side quests.
Yeah, they were either relevant to the story or how you powered yourself up as you went along.
Right.
Whereas half the side missions don't have a ton of meaning towards the main plot of the story.
Yeah.
In those other wide open games. And I just want and I know it's difficult to find that balance. It's either an open world game or a first person shooter. Sometimes it's very hard to find that balance in between. But if they can find it, that could be a special edition.
I agree. Again, this one is way, way off. Will definitely be next gen, almost certainly. But I love just thinking about these games coming back, that we either sequels or, these are all sequels, I suppose, that we talked about today in Rumor Mill. But I'm very much excited.
I just want more Booker.
Do you?
I liked his character, so
I did too.
So I want more Booker. I
need to go back and replay that game.
I did not that long ago.
I have the Bioshock collection, and I played through 1 and 2, and I have yet to go. I started Infinite, but I played through that game like 2 or 3 times at release. That's one of the few times where I finished the game and then immediately started another playthrough just because I wanted to experience the story all over again, knowing what I know now. It's kind of like a Sixth Sense approach.
Oh, okay.
How when you finish that movie, you just wanted to go back and rewatch it to see the clues and stuff like that. Oh, man. And the music was so good in that game.
I still have my Songbird statue.
I bet you do.
It looks so pretty.
Well, we will be back next week with more actual relevant news. Things were a little light this week, except for what we're going to talk about in our From the Outside In topics. So I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with some rumor stuff this week because it made for good conversation. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. Got some quick housekeeping to take care of. CB, what's going on with Patreon?
Games have been played, and we're just getting ready to record now. So we're going to be doing a VR episode on some games that Scott, myself, and Spencer have played. And Christina and myself have played some NES game not game shows, but TV shows games. And we're just waiting to get Scott caught up, and then we're going to be recording that. So there's some new stuff on the horizon, and a couple of them were pretty fun. A couple of them were pretty bad. So
find out which one he's wrong about when we record that episode.
Ooh, them's fighting words, son.
I actually got a challenge to throw out to Owens right now. I think we should do a break the seal on Super Mario RPG.
I could be down for that.
I like it.
Get started now because that's a pretty decently length game.
I haven't played that one either, so.
Oh, both of you do it.
Oh, I love it. Let's do it. I'm on it.
All right.
Please let me be on that. I'll replay that one too, actually. I think.
All right.
I had that. Last time I played that, I played it on the Wii. It was on the
Wii Shop.
The Wii Shop. Is that what they called it? The Wii Shop?
The Wii Store channel.
The Wii Store
something.
Wii channel. Yeah. I think we should put that one on the docket.
I'm writing it down right now.
Do you guys like JRPGs? I don't know if you do, CB.
I do. Yes.
I don't mind them, but I have to take them sparingly unless it's something that I'm like super excited about, like Legend of Dragoon.
Man, if that were available on the Switch, I would play that tomorrow.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
I have my PS1 copy, so that
PS1 copy
for Legend of Dragoon.
Oh, no. I'm talking about Super Mario RPG.
Oh, well, okay. So, yeah, I'm almost positive I have that as well, so.
I thought you were saying you had your PS1 copy of Super Mario RPG.
I thought it was a port. It was a port, didn't you know?
Yeah, they ported that over there.
It's the one game they actually agreed on.
Well, Super Mario RPG was made by Square.
Yes, it was.
Was
Was it Square or was it Square Enix at that point?
I believe it was
Squaresoft.
Squaresoft. Yeah, that's how long ago that game was. Oh, that game is so charming. And what's fun about it is there's some bonus stuff. You know how like in the Final Fantasy games, you could go get the Omega weapon and the Ruby weapon and all that? They do some of that in Super Mario RPG. There's some fun hidden stuff. There's a casino that you can unlock if you do all this goofy stuff. And there's some throwback humor. Oh, man, I want to go play that. The music is so good in that game, too. We definitely need to make that episode happen because that's a fantastic game. All right, well, if any of that stuff that CB talked about sounds interesting to you and you'd like to help out the Gaming Outsider, we do have a Patreon available where all those episodes as well as all of our past content are available for you right now. All you got to do is sign up for our $3 tier at patreon.com/thegocast. It does help us pay for the show, helps us give back to the community with giveaways, as well as plan for future events like R2V2 2020. Which we are in the very early works of getting that set up and going.
But we will not be pushing it back.
We will not. Yeah, we're not going to delay it. We're going to get a date and we're going to stick to it.
That's right.
Sounds good.
Well, that's a great segue, Owens. It's time for us to jump into our From the Outside In topic. As Owens alluded to, this has been a tough week for release dates as several games have been pushed back from their target dates. We actually had another one added a few hours before we recorded. So here's the list. First off, Final Fantasy VII Remake has been moved from March 3rd to April 10th, so just a little over a month. Marvel's Avengers has been moved from May all the way to September. The big one, I think that really cut a lot of people, was Cyberpunk 2077, which was moved from April to September. Iron Man VR has been moved from February to May, and the one that happened today, Dying Light 2, has been moved from a spring release to a date yet to be determined. So for this week's topic, we're going to discuss delays and how we feel about them. So before we actually even get into the specifics of delays in general, what are your guys' thoughts on this week's announcements of these 5 games specifically being pushed back?
Not good.
Yeah?
Well, Final Fantasy VII I knew was going to get delayed again, no matter what. Just because...
Yeah.
I feel that every time that date gets closer, they're like, oh, we got to put some more shine on this. It's not good enough yet. And that's going to be the biggest problem is they keep shining this game so much that eventually when it comes out, it's either going to have to be like just amazing or it's going to be crap. Marvel's Avengers, ooh, that's a long delay for that game, especially with the fact that we don't know a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a feeling that there's a good chance that somebody finally started playing that game and they're like, oh, this is not good at all.
Well, especially if that game is like a Destiny or what's the EA one that everybody hated at launch and it got better.
Was it Anthem?
Anthem, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if that game plays like that and they're looking at the woes of games like Destiny and Anthem that struggled at launch but got better with time, I kind of wonder if that's what they're doing, is they're waiting to get all those bugs out and whatnot before releasing it.
Yeah. The Iron Man VR one, I'm not surprised by at all, just because, I mean, VR games, like once you actually start playing through them, because there's so much in them with how that works, like I can understand that one getting delayed. Cyberpunk 2077, honestly, not surprised with how big that game is, that wasn't getting delayed. So, and Dying Light 2 hurts. That one hurts a lot.
I feel like we've been waiting for that game for quite a while. And especially because that one doesn't even have a target now. It's just like, we'll let you know sometime in the future when that game's going to come.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I feel that one actually got delayed just for next gen.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling they're just like, they have everything in there. They're just going to polish everything up and just be like, next gen is here. Drop this big game at the beginning and go with it.
Well, didn't somebody from our community like take off work. Like they had requested a week off of work for the release of Cyberpunk 2077, and then just got it approved like a week before it gets pushed back to September.
Wasn't that like Sam Smith?
It was Sam Smith, yeah.
So
like, if you're Sam Smith, you go back to your boss and go, so can I switch my vacation that I just got approved to this week in September instead?
Yeah.
You know?
And with all these delays, I mean, Doom Eternal was delayed. Watch Dogs Legion, delayed. So I have a feeling because we're moving to the end of this console generation, some of these just could be like putting in the coding that they'll have the next generation like upgradability.
Sure.
So that way they can at least extend the life of their games. So
that's true.
I mean, I'm not as familiar as like computers with Owens is. So I mean, you might have a little more on that than I do.
It's entirely possible. I mean, the technology is there, and if they wanted to basically tuck away the coding to give it that next-gen feel, they could absolutely call that an update, quote-unquote, for that next-gen. I think the timing is a little off to make it feel like it's a next-gen move. Frankly, I thought the Cyberpunk one hurt the most. I thought that stung a lot, because we've been waiting for that game for a while. It's been on the docket for a long time, and to push it out 6+ months. What was it? 6 months? 6+ months?
Almost.
Or pretty
5
close.
months,
yes. 5 months longer. That hurts a little bit. I was actually looking forward to that one. So that was kind of like the big blow to me when that was that delayed. The Final Fantasy one, I almost laugh at, because there have been countless delays, and delay 4 weeks later, I think is a chuckle. And I don't know, maybe it was a rib on part of Square Enix to delay that. But as long as the content is good, I'm okay with the delays. I mean, if they're really paying attention and seeing the bombs that got out there, then I'm okay with it. But if this becomes a situation, I hate to bring it up, guys, but Duke Nukem Forever, and that it took forever.
Well, that had development issues. That had so many different developers that the game got handed off to. It was just kind of a mess from start to finish.
All I know is an enigma in its own delay. I just don't want to see it fall into that category. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the issue here. But my thing with these delays is, even with just Cyberpunk and Avengers getting moved to September, and whatever else is going to be September, because that's always a hot month. September is when we're going to be trying to get R2V2 off the ground. That is going to make September a nutty month for the Gaming Outsider.
Oh,
if all that stuff is happening at the same time.
Yeah, because Avengers is going to be 60 plus, anywhere from 30 to 60 hours. Cyberpunk is going to be.
I'd lean more towards 60. Cyberpunk's going to be 100 plus.
I'd say 200.
I was going to say 200 plus, knowing CD Projekt Red.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Iron Man VR, that's going to be an 8 to 10 hour game at best.
If that, yeah.
But Dying Light 2, I put almost 100 hours into Dying Light 1. Like that was the game I was most excited about this year, other than Watch Dogs Legion. And
I feel really bad I didn't bring you home a statue.
So, I mean, I still carry that battery pack everywhere. The Dying Light 2 one. I love Dying Light 1. I was super excited for 2, and seeing, like, I actually have a pre-order for Dying Light 2. And so actually seeing that game being delayed indefinitely, that one really hurts.
Did we not see that coming, though? I mean, look at the announced date, spring. There's a 90-day window there that you couldn't even nail down to a single month. That had delay written all over it.
That is a good point. We didn't have a for sure date. We just had spring, and it's already winter.
Well, I mean, I knew it was going to be a delay, but the fact that now they have a delay with 0 time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And when was the last time that we saw some updated gameplay footage for that?
I haven't seen anything since E3.
I know. So I was expecting a delay, but I was really hoping that sometime between now and like March, we were going to see something. Honestly, I think Dying Light 2, they're probably going to make an announcement at like E3, be like, hey, well, this is our new target date. So, but yeah, that one.
Don't be shocked if they kept it vague again.
Oh yeah, I'm willing to bet they're gonna say probably Q1 2021. That's what my guess is. And honestly, Q 2021 is probably an early estimate because it'll probably get delayed to Q3 2021.
Man,
but
well, I mean that's when that's a AAA game that they want to come out during the holidays.
But the fact that now that how long that game is going to be delayed, the hype behind it is just going to start wavering hard.
You're probably not wrong, but they could also market it. They could be doing some marketing moves. Maybe we'll see some commercials on TV or something like that, some trailers.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm willing to bet, other than Dying Light 2, Avengers, Cyberpunk, or Final Fantasy VII is going to get delayed one more time.
At this point, I might be okay with another delay on Final Fantasy VII, because doesn't Resident Evil 3 come out on the same day?
Yeah.
And that's going to be a real tough...
So that's a hope versus a prediction. Let's get that right.
So, well that
you're
one...
You're not wrong.
But again, what was it? The initial Final Fantasy VII remake was originally teased during the PS3 era, and now we're coming up on the PS5, and they're like, "Oh, look, it's finally happening. It's finally here."
The PS3 area is when the phony screenshots started showing up.
No.
I think PS4 was when they actually did the reveal.
During PS3, they actually did make a 5 to 10 minute segment of the game that they showed at E3. They're like, "Oh, the PS3 can do this," and they showed that clip, and they're like, "But we're not making this."
Well, that's how they marketed on the PS1, for crying out loud. I've never seen a bigger difference between the cinematography and the gameplay itself.
Yeah, so, but I mean,
it really was.
Yeah. So, I mean, that game has been heavily hinted towards a remake since the PS3, but...
You know what? The heck with you guys is RE3. I want my FF7.
Man.
Yeah, that's... Dude, I'm so all about the Final Fantasy VII remake. I just playing that demo and hearing that music and the new combat and just how cinematic that thing looks.
I can't wait for the final battle in my 7.1 surround sound.
Well, you're not going to get that this time around. You know that, right?
So,
because I mean, this is only the first act of the game. You're not getting the whole game yet. You know that, right?
Well, I know, but eventually it will be mine.
Oh man, can you imagine how long they're gonna release this first part, and then it's be like, 5 years later, here's the second part.
And I kind of hope that's part of why the delay is there, because it has something to do with the sequels, and I'm hoping that the sequels aren't 5 years apart, because that would just be devastating if you had to wait another 5 or 6 years to get the second chapter. I mean, sadly, we'll all pay for it. I mean, how many times are you going to want to replay the first part of that story?
Not.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
Not.
Honestly, that's why I'm okay with even if Final Fantasy VII does drop on the same day as RE3. I will be playing RE3 first, because
I know you will.
Well, simply because with 7, I would want it to be closer to the date of the second part of that game getting released.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're like, "Oh, look, we're announcing the date for the second half of it," then I'll be like, "Okay, now this is the time frame I'm going to play that."
Right.
It's like binge watching Netflix. You got season 1 of Final Fantasy VII, season 2 due this fall.
Exactly.
Well, plus Resident Evil 3 is probably going to be a shorter experience. I could blast through that game in a week and then just focus on Final Fantasy and savor it and enjoy it. But it's going to be so hard to not play Final Fantasy right out the gate.
I like Resident Evil more.
I know you do.
I know you do. Stars.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. So let's go ahead and actually get into the meat of the topic here. How do you guys feel about delays? Are you frustrated by these, or are you okay with them?
Well, Amber Olmsted Lily put out something I thought was really interesting. She said it's frustrating but understandable until it isn't. Take Watch Dogs, for instance. Delayed a ton to release a super mediocre game in my IMO, in my opinion. I also feel we announced dates way too early. Announcing that a game is coming out in 9 months to a year is asking for a delay. Planning your development and actual development time is not the same. And that happens all the time in games that are delayed or not. But I do also find it frustrating yet understanding that games that are released too early aren't polished enough, and you have a 500 gig, I know this is exaggeration, but a 500 gig update on day one. Mm-hmm. And games that go too late, and all of a sudden the hype and lust start dying off, and by the time it comes out, it's either dwarfed by another major release, or it's just like, oh, you lost my attention. So it's a balance to find where you're making improvements versus something that's going to lose a gamer's attention.
Do you think it's possible that some of these delays are part of their marketing strategy? Like they actually mapped this out?
Well, Thomas Beck said something about that. He says, I think release dates are kind of ridiculous for most games. I'd much rather wait and get the best game possible than have programmers crunch, miss bugs, whatever. It's different for seasonal games, of course, but a quote, regular game should come out when it's ready, not when the shareholders want it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in the real world. And I thought that I know that comes into a play a litting bit for, getting stockholders, shareholders, whatever. But we all, CB, you had mentioned this. We all know when the hot season is for gaming is early fall, September, October.
Yeah.
Let the hype machine build for Christmas. Let the gamers like us that get our paws on them first to really build it up for the rest of the general population. But unfortunately, the people in the suits still try to make the money and work the games around it to do that. I hope that being that gaming is more recently becoming recognized as an art form, that becomes less of the conversation.
I don't see that happen anytime soon, man. I think that these companies are a business, and they're more concerned about the almighty dollar. And that sucks, especially when it comes to, I think Amber was the one that mentioned crunch, or maybe Thomas did.
That was Thomas did, yeah.
I'm okay with it just for the sheer fact of these people not just having on these awful work environments. I don't want anybody, busting ass for 80, 90 hours a week so that I can enjoy a video game. They deserve their lives. They deserve their rest just as much as all of us do. So, and at the end of the day, there's plenty of games to play, guys. There's plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have backlogs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
we have back oceans.
Well, there's so many things like I never understand. I understand why Q3 and Q4 are the hot seat for gaming, because it's end of the fiscal year, moving into holiday seasons. If I was a gaming company, I would want to release my games at the beginning of June.
Right before E3 or during E3?
Yeah, because your target audience is going to be home from school for the summer, so you're going to see bigger spike in sales, which honestly, I think if companies saw a bigger spike in sales throughout the summer, it would take a lot of pressure off for the shareholders when they're staring at the end of the fiscal year, be like, oh my God, we didn't make any money this year. Throw a game out regardless of how far along it's been developed. Screw the bugs.
Well, don't forget some companies' fiscal years are July to July instead of January to January. So
True.
that can vary depending on the company.
Yeah. So it does depend on the company.
You also got to remember, though, too, that during summer, there's a lot of people out there that would prefer to be outside during the summer months instead of cooped up inside playing video games like we do.
Well,
you really think I work on deep dark tan like this, being outside? Come on.
Well,
it takes effort to be this pale.
And I agree that there are people that like to be outside during the summer. I enjoy being outside and grilling and things like that.
And playing games on your porch outside in the summer.
Yeah, I do.
That's the best, and I'm joining you guys this year. I can't wait.
But I do understand, though, that my target audience, if I'm a game developer, is going to be home from this time to this time. If I was going to sell games or market games and try to push them, that would be my window. Not oh, look, here, have this game, buy it, never play it because you're back in school.
Well, I think that a developer's sweet spot is going to be that holiday season. I think if there's not anything available, or if it's too crowded during the holiday season, they're looking for the next available open area. I think that's honestly why we got these delays, all 5 of these and any others that we may have missed, all this past week, because as things got moved to September, somebody else said, "Ooh, there's an open spot. Let's move ours back to there." They want to stay away from when other games are coming out at the same time because they don't want to compete with other games.
But
they want to be the only big game coming out that week.
But now you have two big games competing against each other in September when you already know that that's going to be a hotbed for game releases.
Do you think that was on purpose?
If that's on purpose, they're idiots, because now you have people like, oh, well, I'm more excited about this game that I saw at E3 than I'm about the possibility of playing Marvel Avengers, which I don't know a lot about and has been delayed multiple times.
I think you're looking at two different demographics, though. I know that Avengers has a very broad appeal, but that game, from the little that we know about it, feels very much like it's not a looter shooter, but it's a grindy game.
But
a Destiny.
I'm a comic book fan. I love comic book characters. This scares me about this game. Like, I almost don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Well, did you see the trailer? Those character models look like they needed quite a bit of polish.
Yeah. So at
least in the cutscenes.
Like I said, I'm not surprised by that delay. So, looking at some of the community responses, Joel Soslinski, I'd rather have the release dates get moved over releasing a poorly running game, getting it running well, and then release it. Anthem comes to mind, exciting new AP, but release was a mess. Game has never recovered, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but it could have been so much more. I completely agree with that one. Also, you remember, what was it? Not last year. It was last year. When Resident Evil 2 got announced at E3. Nobody knew that game was coming at all. Mm-hmm. And they're like, guess what? It's coming in 8 months. They hit their window. Like, that, to me, that was, you already knew that game probably had a good chunk of it already done.
Right.
They knew that the polish needed to be done. And I feel that, like, I understand building hype for games, but if you're going to hype me, like, I love Bethesda to death. But the fact that they're like, Starfield coming at some point in time in the future, we have no other information at this time.
Literally just a title card.
Yeah. Well, they did the same thing with Elder Scrolls 6. I hate that. Like, don't tease me like that. Because now it's going to be like...
They also did it to Metro Prime 4.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah. I honestly feel that once the game has been like 75 to 80% finished, then you announce your title. Like, the rumors are out there, the rumors are swirling that, like, oh, there's a new game coming. But once you hit that point of 75 to 80% done, that's when you need to be like, okay, we're announcing our game. Because
you know what I want to see one company do, and I think the closest we got to a company doing this was EA when they announced Apex Legends, a game that nobody had ever heard of, knew what it was. But I want to see a AAA developer and or publisher come out, show a AAA game that we've never heard of before, brand new IP, and show the trailer, talk about it, and then close that thing being like, by the way, you can go download it right now. Buy the game right now. I want to see what the numbers look like when a company does that, when they don't have the marketing time to build it up, because I think that would prove to these companies that we live in a digital world where people have eyes on this stuff all the time, and word of mouth travels amongst gamers faster than almost anything, I feel like.
See, I think that's the other side of the pendulum, though, because there is such thing as too fast, and you're kind of like, huh? What? What's this? Available now? But I don't... You know what I mean? That it's... And they really want him to go buy the thing?
It's never been tried.
True.
Look at how well Apex Legends did. Granted, that's a free-to-play game that you don't have to actually drop money on, but people dropped money on it once they got into it. And everybody was talking about Apex Legends that day. Everybody. And then we all played it. I mean,
you give away anything for free, it's going to be talked about that day.
I understand. But
you're giving a free Rubik's Cube. Hashtag Rubik's Cube will be trending in about 2 hours.
I get where you're coming with it, Scott, but let me play devil's advocate here for a moment. If I was going to do that and expect people to buy my game, I would be like, instead of saying it's ready to be purchased and downloaded right now, I would give it a week. Be like, next week, Friday, because unfortunately for a lot of gamers out there in the world, money is a thing. And if you were to be like, hey, you can buy our brand new AAA title right now, $60. And you're
Come on, how many gamers, as soon as a special edition or as soon as a game is announced, and then there's a pre-order link that goes out there, aren't dropping their money for that pre-order link right there on the spot?
But again, GameStop, I only have to put $5.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I want to see it tested. I want to see it tested where it's you can go buy a digital copy of it and play it right now, or buy a copy from Amazon and get it in 2 days, or go to the store. Like I don't even think the store would work because somebody at a retail store would leak that this copy of this game we've never heard of is out there.
Sega Saturn.
I think it would have to. Sega Saturn.
Sega Saturn was announced
at E3
and E3, and they're like, and you can buy it today, and they had no stock.
But that wasn't a great console.
It had potential.
It had potential. It wasn't a great console.
It had potential, but they announced it, released it. Nobody knew it was coming. Nobody had money prepared for it. Nobody bought it, and it died really quickly.
There's a difference.
That was absurdly high price for how they said, "Hey, get it now."
And that's my point. There's a difference between asking someone to drop $60 right now and dropping $600 right now. That's different.
I'm just saying that there are some of us that have the ability to buy a $60 game if it was released that second. There are a lot of people, basically demographic under the age of 17, that may be a struggle.
Oh yeah.
So I
still think it would be a good experiment, man.
I'd love to see it happen. The feasibility behind it, I don't see it happening.
Or, maybe even not right now. That's the dream. Like, it's available right now to download. This awesome game that you just saw. Because that also, what else that does if you do that? Is it keeps you from reading any reviews. I know that sounds backwards from a guy that reviews video games for fun, but you're not getting anybody's impressions. You're seeing a trailer, you're getting this hype, and before you have a chance to say no because somebody reviewed it poorly somewhere, you were buying it on the spot.
I'll tell you right now, the Resident Evil 2 trailer that they showed at E3, if they would have said available to purchase right now, I would have shut off the stream and bought that game immediately.
Yeah,
but
that's
but again, like for a large chunk of the gaming community, dollars are a thing. So
I agree.
So
maybe even that. Back to my original point before I distracted myself. And that's a talent, by the way. Maybe not same day. In 2 weeks, this game is going to be available for purchase.
See,
it's being sent to retail stores right now. In 2 weeks, you can download it. You can pre-order it right now. Order it digitally. I want to see that happen. I was talking to Aaron Peterson today, and he was frustrated because Dying Light 2 is was the last game of this half of the year that he was going to buy on day one. Now there's nothing that he's interested in playing before September, which as I understand, that's frustrating. He said this is the only industry that he can think of where this happens all the time. Movies don't get pushed back anywhere nearly as often as they do with video games. You don't get pushbacks on dates for the release of new cars. I mean, and trust me, I understand. A lot goes into making these games. I can't even fathom what it takes. But I feel like something has to change in the way that we're delivering this message. And we'll get to what that change needs to be. But I think you got another comment to read.
Yeah. Sam Smith. Sorry about Dying Light 2. Of course, I'd play the game as soon as possible, but I don't want a rushed and broken game. I prefer the games get pushed so that it can be the best it can be and makes it a little easier for the developers as well as lessening crunch time. Scott, I don't know if you've read the book Blood, Sweat, and Pixels.
Haven't yet. I own it. I did pick it up.
They talk heavily about crunch in that game, in that book. Mm-hmm. And so I understand how much pressure it is, but there are the companies out there that love the crunch. So there's a flip side to both of that.
Wait a minute. The companies love the crunch, or the employees love the crunch?
The employees. There are video game companies that thrive. Like they go into detail in the book. There are a few select companies that thrive on the crunch, but the grand majority of them don't. I still firmly believe, though, that I would like a game almost finished before it gets announced, so that way it would prevent a lot of these pushbacks and everything. Because as much, once again, going back to Bethesda, their games are horribly riddled with bugs, which has become kind of their staple. But I would prefer that those don't exist as much. So I'm okay with delays. Just not every single game that's due to release in a quarter being delayed. Like that's
well, yeah. I mean, I keep bringing back Anthem, and I know Joel brought that up as well too. That's a game that, because it released poorly like that, I didn't play it at launch because everyone was talking so much smack about it, and I didn't want to waste my time. And now that they've quote unquote fixed it, it's a little too late. That game is past its prime for me in terms of sweet spot. I've got too many other things I'd rather jump into at this point, and it's not the new hotness anymore. There's something about finding that happy medium. In fact, Kyle Boggs had a comment here where he said, if the game runs or looks better, I'm perfectly fine with dates getting pushed because they're doing it for a reason that may not have been made public. With the current gen almost at the end of its life and more games getting pushed, it makes me think that they may be pushing them for either a port or dual release. With this in mind and the multiple leaks of full backwards compatibility, I don't mind waiting for the next gen system to play titles. I have my PC and Switch to hold me over. And I couldn't agree more. If it's going to make the end product better, take as much time as you need, guys. I'm not in a rush. I know your investors and board members and stuff are in a rush for you. I can't speak for every consumer out there, but take all the time you need. I've got plenty of games to catch up on. I've got plenty of games from last year. I think I reviewed 26 games last year. Far from every game that I wanted to play last year. I got plenty to play. So take all the time you need. And that's just on the big consoles. Switch. Now that I got a Switch Lite, there's so many games I gotta get caught up on that. I haven't even dipped my toe into PC very much. Plenty of games.
Borderlands 3.
Oh my God, yeah. I actually was going to jump into that this weekend and couldn't find anybody to play with. So
I forgot you haven't started that yet.
Yeah, well, we started it. It was, about 2 hours? I think we got into that. Not even. If that, yeah. I got one more comment that came from Twitter from a guy by the name of DeVincent Williams. His handle is @VinnyTheDriver. He says, I want a great game. To me, that is more important than hitting a targeted release date. However, it does go without me saying that as a big fan of the Final Fantasy series, that I'm obviously disappointed we'll have to wait longer to play it. I do agree with DeVincent here. However, that one's only, 4 weeks? That game was delayed. That one's not as tough to swallow. It's in the month of April when things aren't quite as nutty for me. And I really am looking forward to savoring that game. But it sucks that it's going to come out at the same time as Resident Evil 3. So fingers crossed that Resident Evil 3 gets delayed.
Shut your mouth.
Because I want to play both, man. I want to play both.
Ain't gonna happen.
And unfortunately, I talked about how the other games there was different types of games. These are vastly different types of games, but I feel like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy have a lot of crossover demographics of people that want to play both games. So one of those games has got to move. They need to.
Final Fantasy 7 will move again.
You just want it to move. Well, what's the answer, guys? Number one, is this a problem? Are we okay with them, giving us a release date and then just delaying it as long as we get the game? Or do you have any suggestions as to what the fix is if it's a problem? Any ideas?
So as far as fixing things, I think 75 to 80% having the game done is like the ideal, especially if, say, you want to launch in November, but currently it's like December. Delay behind closed doors and be like, okay, we're going to announce our game in March That way, like, you have that like couple months spit polish time, and then okay, now it's March. We announce our game. We got an 8-month window to get that last like 20% done of the game and hit our release window.
Right.
So
I don't even know, and it's hard for me to answer this because I'm a person that has his finger on the pulse of gaming stuff and release dates and trailers and news and all that kind of stuff all day long, right? But I'm not everybody else that's buying and consuming these video games. I really want to know if it's necessary to have a release date that early to build up the hype that long. Do you need people talking about the game that long in order for it to have to be there, in order for it to sell well? You know, one thing we've never seen a release date and then the company comes out and says, hey, you know what? We finished this up early. We're going to release it a month or two early.
That's actually a good point. I can't think of any time where a game's like, hey, we're coming out early. It's always push back.
Wouldn't that be amazing if you find out the game that you wanted to play just comes out like a couple months early? I mean, I can see that being a problem if it were a multiplayer game, because people are, you know, counting and expecting to be able to play that online with their friends, and all of a sudden it's out early and someone said, well, I had that money earmarked to spend it 2 months from now. You also run into the problem, people that, like you were talking about, Amazon, GameStop don't charge you until the game releases. Do you get charged for that game now? Because even though it came out 2 months early and you weren't planning on spending that money until 2 months later, you know, that could cause some issues. But
well, at the same time, promotional materials. So if you sent out like a bunch of like posters like, hey, it's releasing on this day, and you're like, hey, we finished everything early, we're going to release it now. You'd have to like go through and have people slap stickers on all your stuff, or change any TV ads that you may have done. So I see them just like, oh, well, we finished early. We're just going to sit on the product now until the actual release date.
Yeah.
You know, I think as a whole, we're a society where patience is wearing thin. It's something that we're getting a more gotta have it now society, and it's just the window of gotta have it now is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that balance, as fine it has to shift. So there has to be some conscientiousness that if there's too much time, as it were, and it's hard to measure depending on the kind of game, that consumer confidence in a good product is going to wear just as thin because there's nothing in front of them.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Do you think that it could be as simple of a fix as changing the vernacular of calling it, instead of calling it release date, calling it targeted release date or something like that?
I think that would have known gamers more.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Dying Light 2 earlier, talking about a spring release. That's extremely not specific. And then it gets delayed to something even less specific. I think the fact that if you leave it that broad, it's going to have a more adverse effect.
Well, I mean, I think consoles, like the actual console releases, get it right, where they're like holiday 2020. I mean, it's a broad enough spectrum that, like, depending on like, oh, we got things done early, we can release it earlier in that window. Things need to get delayed a little, we can release it later in that window.
But quantitatively, it's a smaller window. Spring, summer, fall, that's a 90-day window. Holiday, in general terms, is 25 to 30 days.
Hey, Valentine's Day is a holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, you could stretch it out.
4th of July is a holiday.
So is Groundhog Day.
Arbor Day. Well, I mean, you could do, like, instead of that way, you'd be like early 2020. So you have the first half of the year, or
no?
Well,
I don't think so.
You could say early, mid, or late,
or just say 2020, like they do at when all the trailers drop at E3.
I'm just telling you, have the eye rolls for the seasons. You get that general, and it's just going to be like gag reflex and say, okay, next.
But I'm saying, like, for every E3 trailer this year, you say early, late, or early, late, or mid, like the following year. And then once you hit like that, like, so say it's early 2021 and you're targeting mid 2021. So it's now early, and then you're like, okay, July.
Let me ask you this. Do we even need a release date more than a month before it releases?
Yes.
I think 60 days would be my sweet spot, to be honest with you.
I was going to say 3 months. 3 months is like my window.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
60 to 90 is fair.
60 to 90 days is when the release date should be announced. Because at that point, you're at the point of no return.
Yeah. Well, you're in the quarter before. So if like I'm mapping out like I have this much to spend in this quarter on a game, like on games, I'm like, okay, I know what all the releases are in the next quarter. So start.
And 60 to 90 days gives people enough time to plan like a vacation around if they want to take time off or a day off of work to play their favorite game that they're very excited about, which I'll admit I've done in the past. Obviously, Sam Smith has done that, and then you're locked in.
The man took a vacation week, for gosh sake.
But I find it hard to believe that putting that release date on a game 9 to 12 months beforehand is still there's still a marketing strategy behind that. It makes the game seem more legitimate, like it's actually happening if it has a date on it, even if the date is bull. Right?
I think that for the shareholders, yes, but the gamers, I think, are smarter than that. And if it looks like crap and smells like crap, then it's crap. They won't care at the end of the day.
But I feel like it's making us jaded, at least some of us, where we see a release date and we're just be like, it's not going to happen. I mean, when's the last one that did? You said Resident Evil 2, which was early last year.
Well, how many times when you look on a website, you see release date, December 31st, 2019.
Well, that's just a placeholder that they put on retail sites.
But there is some people that will believe that is the date. And I'm like, I've never seen that happen.
Honestly, I remember the only last one I remember was 9/9/99, the Sega Dreamcast.
Sega Dreamcast. Well,
that's the last one I remember.
Well, that brings up a good point. Has a console release ever been delayed? They somehow managed to get that, It would be a disaster to not release a console before the holidays, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a quick peek. So,
here we go. So, look at this, using the Google machine on the air. Yeah, it's great.
Is it not googly enough?
I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is because I don't want gamers frustrated, but at the same time, I also don't want employees to have to go through a crunch.
No, I hear you, and I'm with you there, Scott. And I like CB. I mean, I have a crunch in my job that I kind of get off on. The fact that if I have to press for something, that kind of makes me work harder, and there's a little more euphoria if you find the solution. But you talked earlier about jaded gamers. This is the environment that This is the environment that the developers have created with so many delays, and now with so many AAAs piling on. It's a jaded environment. Jaded gamers are in a jaded environment. That's what's in front of us, unfortunately.
Yeah. We're just going to get to the point where we see a release date and say, it's not going to happen. We're just going to add 4 or 5 months to that. Just
until
by
they change yes, absolutely. Until they change the trend, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah.
So
what'd you find, CB?
So I have 2 bits of information for you.
Okay.
Do tell.
The only console to have ever been delayed, according to this website, was the Nintendo 64.
That's a miracle.
Okay.
Apparently that was delayed several times before it came out. On the flip side, the Sega Saturn was actually rushed out the door. Instead of being its original release date of September 1995, it was released at E3 in May of that year. So that one, I still have a feeling that if the Saturn would have been sat there and cooked a little longer, that console could have been better.
Wasn't the Saturn supposed to jump ahead of PlayStation? That's why it rushed so much?
Yeah.
Because they were going to go head to head on the dates, so they wanted to get out there first.
Well, wasn't that which was the console where like Sony just came out on the stage and be like, this is the price, and just walked off the stage?
It was a PS3, wasn't it?
It could have been. So for once, there is actually something out there where they're like, hey, we got it done early, we're releasing it now. And it failed horribly.
Yes, but again, you're asking that's a console purchase, not a game purchase. I mean, with how well they are able to keep secrets in the gaming industry nowadays, I would love to see a developer give us a targeted release date, but secretly they're actually planning on releasing it a month earlier, and then just drop it.
If they do, they better have it right.
Yeah. But they've got that wiggle room that they don't have to. If they don't have it right, then they just release it when they targeted it.
They may have the wiggle room and get like the oh my goshes from the gaming community, but their margin for error is microscopic.
I just want to see it happen, man. One time, I want to see it happen.
All right.
Well,
I mean, we've got opposite ends of the argument here with Apex Legends and with the Sega Saturn.
Well, how many of these games have you seen? Like you hear GameStop employees like, "Oh, look, we already have this game. It's in the back, but it's in a box that says do not open this package until this date." Right. So with manufacturing times, you know some of these games are out long before like their targeted window. But then again,
that's what I was saying earlier. Is you don't send them out. You say, a month before, you say, "Hey, we got this game done early. We're gonna release it next week, so their copies are going to be shipped to the store this week." So that way, none of the because you give a retail store employee a box that says "Do not open before this date." Guess what they're going to do?
They're going to open it.
I mean, there's no way. You're not going to trust retail employees to keep that secret.
But also with release dates these days, when was the last time we had a AAA title that didn't have a massive day one patch?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's just the state of games nowadays.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Anyway, that was a fun topic, guys. We got a lot of longevity about that. I really enjoyed it. So let's go ahead and move on to some housekeeping. Owens, what do we got going on in the social medias?
Moi?
Yeah.
Well, in our brand new Facebook members, welcome everyone, especially to Greg Young, Matt Moran, Larry Chu, and Horatio Suarez. Welcome to the Facebook community.
And if you'd like to join that community as well, we got lots of good conversations. Head over to facebook.com/groups/the GoCast. Also, if you'd like to join our Discord, you can do so at there's a link in our show notes, actually. We've got a great community over there as well, too. It's a lot of fun. Conversations going on all throughout the day. I can't keep up with it. There's so much going on. So who do we got over there?
We got Swashik, and I love that screen name.
Swashik. Very good. Also, if you'd like to help us out, drop us an iTunes review. We'd really do appreciate it. It helps us get the word out about what we do. We want to expand our audience, and one of the best ways to do that is with reviews on the iTunes store. So be sure to do that. Let us know what you think, and we will read it on the show. Finally, before we move on to the games we've been playing, we have some written reviews available for you on the site. Rel, our resident video reviewer, has a video review for a game called Orange Blood, which is a JRPG he talked about last week. Also, Spencer has a written review for The Disguiser of Fate. You're going to hear him talk about that in a couple minutes. And then we also have another top 10 list for you. Thomas put together his top 10 personal favorite games of 2019. All of those are available at thegamingoutsider.com. Let's go ahead and jump into the games we've actually been playing. So Zach's not here, so I get the privilege of announcing the upcoming games for the week. Just a pretty short list, at least the ones I could find that looked mildly interesting. First one is called Lumini. This is on PS4 and Xbox One. It releases January 21st and January 22nd, respectively. And it also comes to Switch on January 24th. Not really sure what to make of that game. It looks like you can control a bunch of flying critters through like a Metroidvania kind of map. Seemed kind of interesting. One that I hadn't heard of is The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, which is coming to PC on the 23rd and will be on consoles later on. This looks like a brand new game, so it's going to be taking place in New Orleans. It was a really clever trailer, actually. I highly recommend checking it out. Next up is Orn, the Tiny Forest Sprite on Switch, which releases on the 24th. That is a platformer. Looks like a relatively cute platformer with some fun mechanics. And then lastly, Stone on Xbox One. I don't know if you guys watched this trailer, but you play if the Big Lebowski were a koala, that would be the description of this adventure game. That comes out on January 27th. Any of these titles interest either of you guys?
I'm going to play Stone.
Are you?
Oh, yeah. I thought that looked really good, and Lumini actually really kind of gets it for me. That looks really pretty.
Looks like a very relaxing Zen-like game, but I can't wrap my head around how the game works. Owens, anything for you?
The dew does not abide.
So you're not going to play Stone?
I frankly, and we'll talk about it later, I'm kind of involved with one right now that I can't quite pull myself out of, so none of them are really grabbing my attention that hard.
Yeah, it feels like the summer doldrums right now, and it's still winter. There's not a whole lot coming out on the horizon that I'm super stoked for, but you know what? We're still playing games, and you guys want to hear me talk about Ring Fit Adventure?
If you must.
Educate me, because I kind of want to buy one.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, let me tell you, Ring Fit Adventure is the reason that I did not go running today, because my thighs are still that sore from playing Ring Fit Adventure for the 45-minute workout or whatever I did the other day. This game is no joke. You know, I had a Wii balance board. Remember Wii Fit back on the Wii?
Oh, yeah.
I had one of those, and I use it more for a scale than anything else. All the activities are just like, whatever. This isn't really doing much of anything for me. This game is the real deal. So the way this game works is, if you haven't seen the trailer, it is a ring that is a peripheral for the game. It's a giant ring, looks like a steering wheel, and you take one of the Joy-Cons off of your Switch, and you slide that into the ring. It actually snaps in there just like it does on the Switch unit. And then the other Joy-Con you put into a strap that wraps around your upper thigh. You with me so far?
Sounds kinky.
Really? So this game starts out, and it is an RPG. It's a role-playing game, and there's a really goofy story where the ring is alive, and it talks to you, and this winged creature comes down that you set free inadvertently by talking to the ring, and you have to go fight him. And while you're getting ready to fight him, he's doing push-ups, and there's like a whole fitness thing. Really silly story. You're not playing this for the story, right? But then the game starts, and you have to choose a setting for this game, and it asks you some questions. It asks you for your weight. It asks you for your height. How often do you exercise? And I chose the option, I exercise quite often.
Whoops.
Which is the highest level of difficulty in this game. And yeah, I'm a little sore, man. A little sore, but in a good way. I'm not knocking it. I'm actually having a lot of fun with this game. So the ring, if you haven't seen the trailer, senses when you push the ring in together or pull it apart, move it down, put it over your head, all this kind of stuff. And each level is kind of like an on-rails platformer. Think like a Temple Run or something like that. And to navigate through the level, you actually run in place. And I'm moving my arms, and that doesn't make sense because you're not doing that. You're holding the ring in front of you, moving your legs in place. So it's kind of nice actually having something to hang on to. It keeps you from swinging your arms and forces you to actually focus on your legs, which is interesting. If you go upstairs, you have to lift your knees higher to make it run up the stairs without tripping over himself. There is a shooting mechanic where if you squeeze the ring together, he shoots out like a ring of fire. So there are targets to your left and to your right that you can actually aim the ring towards to get coins that you can use to purchase things. And there are jumps. So if you want to jump, you actually have to hold the ring flat down and squeeze it and hold it as he jumps, and the harder you squeeze it, the higher he jumps. There are 3 tokens in each level that you have to try to get, so it makes you want to go back and collect them all if you missed one. That's there. And that's traversing through the environment. So far, it doesn't sound too bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get to fight enemies. And if you've ever played a JRPG and you come across that first enemy, it's usually like a cakewalk, right? A couple hits and he's dead. I don't know if this is because I'm on the hardest level of difficulty. My first encounter with an enemy, just a little, slime or whatever it is, took me a good 4 or 5 minutes.
Jesus.
To beat. And the way that you beat these enemies is by doing different calisthenics. And the one that I started with was a squat, where it's not a full squat. You just basically bend your knees, lean back, and you hold that position there, and the game senses how far down you are. The lower down you go, the higher the power is going to be to attack the enemy, and you do these hit points. But it's not just what I thought it was going to be, where you do one squat, stand up, let him attack, try to defend it. No, you're doing, on my level of difficulty, 30 squats. And the first 20 of them aren't like squat quick and get back up. You squat, get down till the meter builds up, stand up, it releases a fireball or attack on this guy. Squat down, hold it again, wait for it to fill up, and then do it. Now, once you get to 20 or so, the last 10, they say, all right, speed it up. And you do these quick squats to get in there. And doing that rep or that set of 30 squats did just under half of this one little slime's health.
Oh.
You with me so far?
Sounds painful.
Then it is the enemy's turn to attack you. Now, much like we were talking about in the Paper Mario games where you could press a button and deflect an attack or absorb some of the blow, you can do the same thing in here. But in order to do it, you take the ring and you put it flat in front of you and hold it against your abs. And then you press both hands on it and squeeze it towards yourself. So it feels like you're deflecting. So you're doing like an ab workout to deflect the other guy's attacks. And I don't know, it feels pretty good. So I got as far in this game, basically the first world. There's 2 or 3 levels and then the final boss. The final boss of that world took me over 10 minutes to beat of doing stuff like this. There was an exercise where I had to squeeze the thing together for a certain amount of time, then release it. Same thing. The harder you push it in, the more attack power you're going to do. You're defending. I had one where I had to do yoga poses, where you do like a mini squat and hold it above your head. Same kind of thing. I worked up a sweat, guys. I legit worked up a sweat. Like, I'm going to start wearing a headband when I play this game. My shirt was soaked. I had to take a break and get a bottle of water. The game is really good about reminding you to drink water and take rests and all that. But I am shocked at how good this game is and how much of a workout it gave me. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm going to do it at least 2 or 3 times a week to supplement my already existing exercise routine. But it's a fun way to do exercises.
So I have a question about it. How much time have you put into this game so far? Rough guess.
About an hour, a little over an hour.
How is the durability of the ring holding up?
It is very durable. It is not something that you feel like you're going to snap.
Okay.
I've come close to touching, when I squeeze it together, I've probably come within like maybe an inch or 2 from my hands actually touching each other. It does not feel like it's not just rubber. It's almost got like this material on it.
Like a steel band or something?
There's definitely metal on the inside of it. It feels like it.
Okay.
And even the outside of it isn't. There are parts of it that are rubber, but the part where your hands are have like this cushiony material that just gives it this really durable feeling.
Okay. I mean, I'd seen videos where people like tried to break them. Like one guy, it looked like he actually busted his teeth out because it snapped back and hit him. But I'm just wondering with an extended amount of time of like squeezing and like putting pressure through this thing, like the durability on it. Just because if I'm going to spend like $70 on something that is going to be abused, I just want to make sure that it's not going to like crumble apart in my hands.
Well, you got to remember too that you are much stronger than I am. You lift 400-pound people for a living, and I don't. So, you're probably going to punish this thing more than I would. So I can't really say for certain. It does not feel like something that is going to break quickly.
Okay.
But I can't speak for you, All
right. Well, I mean, I was just more or less kind of curious on that. So
yeah.
So sounds like it could be a hoot.
I mean, it sucks. I mean, it's a fun game, but I was ready for a break by the time I finished my first circuit or whatever you want to call it. I'm intrigued to see how far it goes, how long the actual story is, which I don't care about the story, but I like having that carrot on a stick of making me want to go forward and collect the coins or get to a boss or something. And if there's only like 5 or 6 worlds or something, that's going to be kind of a disappointment. I mean, I could still do the workouts and whatnot, but the drive for me to keep doing it is the gamification of my workout. So
okay, so
and it works. Any other questions?
Not from me.
All right. Well, that is Ring Fit Adventure, again, exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. I will check in with you more on that on our next episode.
Well, CB, there are games that are before its time, right?
Yeah.
This game is way, 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 way before its time. We're talking about Ancestors of Humankind Odyssey, and you had the privilege of picking this one up.
Yeah, and I like it a lot. This game is weird. So, you essentially play as pre-Homo sapien, like evolutionary beings. I'm not quite sure where they fall, but like this is before like we discovered, like humans discovered fire, and you are in the middle of a jungle, and you have to figure out how to survive. And what you talk about figuring out how to survive, does it take you by the hand and show you what you need to do?
Not at all.
Oh.
This is literally a game of trial and error. Screw up and you die.
And start all over? Like,
nah, I haven't dug a hole that deep yet, but I've come close. So you essentially have your little clan of primates.
mm-hmm.
And the max you can have is 6 elders, 6 adults, 6 children. So the elders cannot breed, the adults can, and then there's the kids. So at any point in time, you can have 3 breeding pairs.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot breed family relatives, like immediate family relatives.
So you have a monkey with 3 heads?
Nope, can't do that. But so if you lose like one of your adults, like males or females, and break a breeding pair, the next generation, you only have 2 breeding pairs. So, and then you actually have to like go out into the wild and find another one. And they are not easy to come by.
So is this more like a simulation game than an action game? Because the trailer looked like there was some action going on.
There is. So you have to like go out, find food, discover things. Meanwhile, this like everything in this game wants to kill you. There are like tigers, anacondas, snakes, wild boars, weather, crocodiles. Like,
so it takes place in Australia.
Well, yeah, kind of. So, but as this game progresses, like you begin the game, it shows you how to make an area to sleep, and that is it. That is all it shows you. You have to figure out everything. Like go break a branch, find a rock, use the rock to sharpen the branch. Like figuring it out. Like you have to inspect everything. And in the beginning of the game, you start in this small area. You actually have to go out, and when you reach the area, like your sphere of influence, when you reach the edge, your primate like freaks out, and you actually have to like conquer your fear and like find out what's out there by like investigating things, like using your hearing, your intelligence, your smelling, picking things up, trying them out. You have to unlock evolutionary traits so you could not only like eat berries and leaves, but meat. Like this game is super, super complex. But I mean, there's been times I've gone online just because I'm curious, like to see how far other people have gotten in this game. And I'm about as far as most people have gotten in this game, but there's still so much more to unlock. But people haven't figured out how to do it yet.
This reminds me of like a Civilization game.
This is Civilization game cranked to 11. So
I watched the trailer, and quite frankly, the graphically it looked a little hokey. I mean, how is it playing on a game level?
Not bad. I mean, the controls are solid. It is very pretty. It does feel more towards the graphics feel more towards the beginning of the generation, but it's a $40 game, so I'm not expecting a whole lot from the graphics, but the gameplay is solid, and it's just really fun to like try to figure things out. I mean, it took me probably a good 15 hours to like figure out like how to sharpen a stick to use as a weapon. Because there's just so much going on in this game that you have to figure out on how to survive. I mean, I'm just very impressed with the amount of realism that they've put in this game.
Interesting. I saw in the trailer too, it looked like you started as a baby primate and you kind of work your way up and get older and become like an adolescent and then an adult. And then towards the end of the trailer, he stands up and starts walking on two legs, which leads me to believe that eventually, you're going to be playing as a human, thus the name Humankind Odyssey. And like, could you see? Because like the Civilization games, you start out in like this super rudimentary, you invent horse and buggies or whatever, and that's like a big deal. But then eventually, you're in the space race by the end of the game.
Yeah.
Do you think that this game could go that far?
Maybe with some DLC.
Mm-hmm.
But like right now, it's like one of the evolutionary traits was like learning to hold a weapon hold a stick in both hands. Like, because like a tiger could come up and scare you and you just drop everything and run away. So it's such a it's very hard to describe some of the things that go on in this game because it is so complex. And you actually say you learn how to sharpen a stick. You have to spend some of your experience points to lock in that trait. So when you have your next generation, like those are passed down to the next generation. If you don't lock in a trait, when you go to the next generation, you don't keep that.
You have to relearn it.
You have to relearn it again. So it's super complex. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Just going around and exploring and just trying to figure out how the world works from a very simple mind. So
that sounds like a fun social experiment almost too, just to like watch people how they react to the game.
Yes.
Like, how do you figure stuff out?
Like, I would love to take somebody who has no idea about how this game works and just be like, play for 2 hours and just see how far they can progress.
Sounds like something I would be wanting to be your forgive me, your experimental ape on.
Honestly, if this game hits a sale, pick this game up because it's fun. It's fun in a way that it makes your brain like think.
I think it goes without saying that you recommend this.
Yes. I recommend it, but have patience with it because again, there's a lot going on with this game and it will take you a bit to figure some things out. As soon as you start the game, the developers left a note at the beginning of the game that says, we'll show you how to do 2 or 3 things and then you're on your own because this is your Odyssey. You have to evolve your species the way that you want to, and we're not going to hold your hand. So they openly tell you up front that we're not here to hold your hand. We made the game. You play it. You figure it out.
I kind of like that.
Right.
So,
well, that's Ancestors.
All right, that is Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. I gotta say, I'm a bit intrigued, CB. Making me want to check that game out. All right, before we finish up, I got a couple other reviews for you. 2 PC games, in fact. Spencer stopped by to talk about a RPG called Disguiser of Fate, and Chad stopped by to talk about a platformer he played on PC called Potata. We'll go ahead and play those reviews for you right now. Spencer, how you been, man? Long time no see.
Hey, Scott. Not too bad. How about yourself?
Doing all right. You were here to talk to us about a JRPG called Disguiser of Fate. This one comes from Windward Birds, And XN Zone is the developers. And thanks to Super Indie Games for providing me with a copy of this one to check it out. And I want to ask you some questions about it because I love me some JRPGs. And this one looks, I'm not going to say rudimentary, but it looks very sprite-based and very old school. And that's a good thing in my mind. But after reading your review, it sounds like you weren't too high on this one.
No, I wasn't, Scott. You're right. It looks a lot like an old school RPG, and that's what they categorize it as. It's an indie game, so not to dog on indie games, but I mean, I wasn't expecting too much from this game. However, a good portion of the game was pretty good. There was just a few hiccups that I did not like.
Okay, we'll get to that. But before we do, I want you to talk to me about the story, because the trailer I saw was entirely in Japanese, and I don't read Japanese, so I have no idea what's going on. Can you tell me what the narrative is about?
Well, you should learn Japanese. It's awesome.
I should.
So it's hard to say. The storyline is you are this guy in a all black armor, looking like a knight, and you start off on this island that has a cave, and you go into this cave and you come across this coffin that has a mask in it, and there's voices in your head that say, put the mask on, put the mask on. So you end up putting this mask on, and you get transported to this green, lush region, and you forget your name and you forget your purpose of why you're there and what happened.
Typical RPG fashion.
Right. So when you start going around, you meet some people throughout the storyline that you slowly discover why you're there. However, it takes a very long time to get to that point. It's a 5-hour game, and I think it was about 4 hours in when I first figured out everything.
Wait a minute, this is a JRPG that's only 4 or 5 hours long?
That is correct.
That sounds insane, because most JRPGs, you're spending a lot of time building up stats and getting experience.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of like that.
You can spend more time in the game, which I ended up doing. I spent about 6-7 hours because they have a wide range of monsters that you can attack and get those stats. So when you get to that, I ended up running around one little area and attacking for a good hour and a half worth of my time. But
doing some farming? Yeah,
just messing around.
Okay. So, I mean, can you tell me what this reveal is, or is that considered spoiler territory?
I would consider that spoiler territory, yes.
Okay. So it's worth checking out. Is the story interesting?
The storyline is very good. I was actually really surprised about that. It was well put. The graphics of that and the visuals of the storyline were amazing. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the things that you had some issues with, and I'm assuming it's the battle system, which it looks to play kind of like Earthbound, where there's no animation except like the characters kind of move up and down when they attack or flash. But there's like a meter on the right-hand side, which reminded me very much of, oh my goodness, the game is escaping me, the one on Octopath Traveler, where you've got kind of like it shows the attack patterns, who's going to be next, and they can move at different speeds, and then that person is the one to attack or do magic and stuff like that. Does that sound about right, or do I have it?
That's perfect. Actually, on the point with that, the little meter on the right-hand side, like you pointed out, it shows when the next person is going to attack, and it goes, it's turn-based, and like you said, there's no animation with the combat. That was kind of my biggest issue. I mean, we're in 2020, no offense, but a little animation would have been a little better.
Maybe. I mean, sometimes I kind of like that old school aesthetic. I mean, I still go back and play Earthbound every once in a while, and that didn't have any. So, I know it's an old game, but
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, what were the issues you had with the controls or the combat?
It just wasn't appealing to me. Like I said, with the visual aspect of it, the controls weren't that great. They didn't give you any idea of how to handle everything. And I mean, that's how most RPGs are. It doesn't really give you a lot of insight on how to do things, but you end up figuring it out over time.
So you kind of get the impression that they expect you to know how a JRPG works going into this.
Right. So if it's someone coming off of the block that doesn't know how to do a RPG, then they're gonna have an issue.
Well, let me ask you this then. Are you a JRPG fan yourself? I mean, do you get
Not
into
too
these
much,
games?
no.
Okay. So do you think that somebody that does like this genre of game would find this game appealing?
I would say yes. Actually, in my review, I do state that if you do end up playing JRPGs, then by all means, go for it because it's not expensive whatsoever. I
actually kind of like the idea of a JRPG being that length because that's one of the things that's tough for me to get back into JRPGs is they ask you, between 40 and 90 hours of your time.
It's ridiculous how much time goes into them. I'm
kind of intrigued. Now, you played it on PC, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And is this available on any other platforms to your knowledge, or is this strictly PC?
I think it's just PC on Steam for $2.99. I think they actually have it discounted right now for $2.29 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
it's
for
not too bad.
5 or 6 hours, that's not a bad price if you like
Not at all.
JRPGs.
Nope, one of the another issue I did have that I do want to point out is when you end up dying in combat, which kind of goes hand in hand with my combat issue. When you die, it actually wipes out everything that you did if you did not save. So you have to go all the way back from your last save spot, which a lot of games are like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to this game and you're constantly farming for stats, you kind of want to expect it to be auto-saved.
So can you save whenever you want to, or do you have to go to a save point like in the Final Fantasy
You have to
games?
go to a save point. There's like crystals around the area that provide save points and actually heals you at the same time.
Oh, okay. Well, that's handy. So you just got to make sure you check your save management and do that before you head up into a boss or a massive fight.
That's right.
Okay. Well, Spencer, thanks for talking to us about Disguiser of Fate. I know that you're not too high on it, but I'm genuinely intrigued by it. It's got that old school feel to it, and I'm intrigued by the story. So I might have to check it out, especially if it's $3 when it's not on sale.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm still on the fence. If I get into RPGs a little more, I think I might like it a little better.
All right. Fair enough, man. Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to review this game for us.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Mr. Cusick, how you been, sir?
Good there, Mr. Clark. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I am excited to talk about this game, and tell me if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Is it Potata?
That's what I've been saying, but it's also kind of fun to call it Potata. I mean,
Potato.
Potata.
Potata. I'm gonna go with Potata or Potata. I don't know. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it looks like a really interesting little game, and I got to give a shout out to the developer who provided you with a copy to check this out. Her name is Anna Lepeshkina, and I apologize to Anna if I mispronounced your name, but thanks for letting Chad try this one out. From the looks of the trailer, which was in another language, because I know that they're not an American developer. They're overseas. I couldn't really tell what's going on story-wise because all the dialogue was in another language. But it looks like a very colorful, friendly platformer.
It is definitely a little platform. There's a lot of colors. It's not like 8-bit or anything, but it's definitely more like the old school 2D style. But
right.
It's very well drawn, very well done as far as the looks are concerned. I mean, you're in a forest village the whole time, so there's definitely lots of greens, reds, flowers, trees, and then, of course, evil things, too.
Yeah. I gotta admit, this looks like it looks really easy. And I'm hoping I'm just getting that from a trailer, maybe an early trailer. But it doesn't look all that difficult. Am I wrong in that assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
You are. Actually, the controls themselves, to start with, it's either keyboard or a controller. And I tried using a keyboard at first because I was out of town. I didn't have a controller with me. And the way it's set up is you're moving with the arrows, and then you jump with the space bar. The E is your dialogue button. And so your left hand's kind of doing the jumping and the dialogue, and your right hand's doing the controls. And that doesn't work for me.
In my experience, playing a platformer with a keyboard is a miserable one.
Yeah, you can adjust it to personalize it. So if you wanted to do like WASD directional controls, if you wanted to make it personalized, you can set that up. But when I plugged a controller in, it made the game a lot more fun to play because there is a lot, kind of like your typical 2D platformer games where you're kind of learning the level, and there is some skill to it with timing your jumps, learning the level, and things going on like that. And a little misjump, little misstep there, and you will find yourself dying quite frequently. Okay, so what's the story going on here with this game? You are a witch that can't use magic. And
well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and you get made fun of it the entire game. There's a lot of sarcasm involved. Nobody lets you forget that part. The way it starts out, though, is you're walking through the first part of the forest, like, walking through the village to get something for your mom, and this portal opens, takes you to part of the forest. Of course, you have to go through it. And at the end of it, you see this flower, and when you touch the flower, it kind of, everything vanishes from there. And then next time you're in a different part of the forest, but all these evil spores have appeared with spikes on them, and now there's these bad guys roaming around and all that. And it all happened because you touched this flower and the petals went spreading out, so you're trying to find all the petals and put it back together by order of this one fairy that you meet.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's typical, go gather these 7 things. Does each petal represent like one of the worlds or something like that?
That's what I thought at first, like there'd be a different stage for each petal, but there's a couple of them where they kind of fit in with the main area you go back and forth from. Like, 'cause you do go back to your village quite a bit. And Potata has
like a main hub?
Yes, Potata has her house, and you're solving puzzles around the main hub, so you're developing that area as well. So you do get some through that as the game progresses. And there is a good amount of puzzle work in it, and a couple of them were very frustrating, actually.
In a good way or like in a poorly designed way?
One of them was starting to get to me, but I still ended up getting through it without, resorting to breaking anything or getting too mad. So they kind of do. There's a couple in particular that kind of push you further than the rest of them. Most of them are pretty solvable, but a couple of them, yeah, like they kind of want to have fun with you. But it is nice that there's different styles of puzzles. It's not all the same thing all the way through. So
I saw some in the trailer look like there was, I'm not going to say Tetris pieces, but Tetris style pieces, if there were more than 4 pieces and you had to kind of piece them together and get them to fit.
Yeah, it was kind of like a tangram kind of thing, except you can't rotate the pieces. So
interesting.
The direction they are is where they go, and that's what makes that a bit of a challenge.
See, I would think that would make it easier, actually, because you have less options.
Well, that's the whole point, is you have less options, which means you have to find the solution they want you to find.
Interesting. So, were you able to finish the game?
Yeah, I did finish it.
Okay.
It does.
How challenging was it?
It's a good little challenge. I mean, it took me some time. I died quite a bit, actually, in a few parts, especially in some of the places where you're learning kind of the rhythm of the level. There's these challenges you have to do to kind of get something to help get towards the end, finding certain items, I'll say. And the challenges really are just a little level setup where you have to get through quickly, avoiding something like, there's rising water or something like that going on. And so it is fun, but they definitely don't make it just a walk in the park either.
The jumps look to be a little floaty.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's touch sensitive with the jumping. So you hold it down, you're going to jump further. You tap it, you're going to jump shorter. So that's part of it, as well as learning. Jumping is one of the key aspects of the game.
Did I see some bosses in there too? Like you're fighting some bigger enemies. Yeah,
the boss fights were interesting. You don't always have one at the end of a level, but you end up getting a little wooden sword you use, so some of them you do have to actually hit. Sometimes it's just avoiding things, but the bosses, I'd say the puzzle is generally presented more of a challenge on the bosses. The bosses you kind of like, just like a Mega Man or any other game. Once you learn the pattern, the rhythm, you're going to get it done. So it might take you a try or two, but once you figure out what they're after and how they presented the boss, you're going to get the pattern.
Okay, so do you recommend the listeners to check out Potata?
If you're into 2D platformers and you do like the puzzle solving, yeah, I would. It's like, I think it was $8 on Steam. So at that price, I think I put 15 and 20 hours into it, maybe. So,
do you know if it's going to come to console as well, or is this going to be exclusive to PC?
I do not know if it's coming to console. I just saw that it was on Steam right now. I didn't see it anywhere else.
Gotcha. I love the art style. It just looks, like I said, vibrant and colorful, and even some of the, if you want to call them cutscenes. I mean, it's that animation where it's barely animation, like the characters just kind of moving.
Well, it shows
just to give this definition or life, so to speak.
And when they're talking, it just shows their faces with the dialogue box switching back and forth. But
I like that, actually.
It is cool. Like I said, they did a good job with the artwork. It's aesthetically pleasing. The music is very simple. It's kind of, actually it seemed almost Celtic to me. It's a flute going on most of the time in the background. It's pretty soothing, actually.
Yeah, my wife was listening when I was watching the trailer, and she's like, "Are you like in Fairyland or something right now? What's going on?" I was like, "No, I'm watching the game trailer."
Yep, it fits. The music fits the game.
Very cool. Well, again, the game is called Potata, and it comes from the developer by the name of Anna Lepeshkina. Thank you so much for letting us try out your game. It sounds like Chad really enjoyed it, and I kind of want to check it out now too.
Yeah,
so, Chad,
it's fun. I would definitely check it out if you're a platformer puzzle guy. Go for it.
Sounds good. And Chad, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you taking the time to review this game for us.
Thank you for having me, man.
All right, anything you guys are catching up on before we get out of here?
My Christmas present from my wife was the game Control.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I heard your advisory on that, which you always do well.
She texted me and asked me, what game should I get? I said, Control.
You answer quickly. I like that too.
Yeah.
I didn't get what was happening for quite a while, but now that I'm starting to figure it out, kind of like the side by side with the main character, it's getting really interesting, and I'm getting more into it, and it's getting cyclical, and I'm having fun, Matrix style fun with this game. So I am quite enjoying it on that aspect.
There's so many cool moments in that game, and when you get to a moment at the end, man, don't say what it's called, CB, because I kind of wish I didn't know what it was going into it, what it was called.
Well, I'm getting to the end of the parapsychology stage, so I'm trucking right along.
Oh wow, yeah, you're moving pretty well.
Oh yeah. And the other one I played was the Shovel Knight, the Treasure Trove, the whole series of the Shovel Knight games, and I'm having the unique experience of playing them in chronological order.
Nice.
Yeah, so I started with King Knight's quest, and I did Spectre Knight. I just finished Shovel Knight. Now I'm gonna play Plague Knight, of course.
Nice. Those games are so good. I love how they each just played completely differently.
I must hold on to my crown of King of the Platformers in the Go.
There you go. As for me, I dipped my toes into Stardew Valley this week.
Oh, how could you?
Finally.
Well, I've been scared to death to play this game because I loved Harvest Moon as a kid, and everyone has just been talking about the hundreds and hundreds of hours you need to get into this game. And I started it up, and I started planting some parsnip, I think is what it was. I was just having fun chopping down trees and picking up rocks and,
Farmville.
Collect. Yeah, but it was very satisfying. It was very cathartic just to kind of clean up my land. I'd run out of energy, go to bed, get back up, till the land a little bit more, water my plants. If I had some energy left, I'd go into town and see what was up. Couldn't really find. They never opened up early enough for me, so go back, water my plants, go to bed. This game is so much more deeper than I thought it was going to be. Like I don't even know where to begin, and some of the comments that people are giving me on Facebook are telling me that go watch a YouTube video of like the top 10 things I wish I knew about Stardew Valley before going into it. And I feel like I need to do that because I have no clue what I'm doing. I have no idea.
I was going to say, now that you're playing, I can give you some really big tips on how to,
like what?
The mine.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure to toil in that mine.
I went into like the little cave over to the left.
Oh no, that's not the mine.
Oh, okay.
That'll become as the game progresses on, you will have an option of growing one of two things in that little cave. Like,
oh, okay.
You're talking the one that's right next to the remnants of a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have that as a mushroom cave, and it grows
Okay.
I grow mushrooms in there.
That makes sense.
So there's some of those. There's some tools that I would highly recommend, and get into fishing early.
I just got a fishing pole, and I tried to fish, and I couldn't catch anything. Do I have to get bait on it or something that I'm missing?
No.
I just gotta be that patient.
No, there's a way to do it, which I'd actually have to have the game in my hand, but
Gotcha.
there's a very specific way that you have to do it. But so when you go through like the town, like you go north of the town, and like there's what used to be like a community center.
Right.
If you go into that community center, there's like little quest lines that you can do.
Oh, okay.
Start working on those quest lines as soon as possible, because they unlock things that make the game so much easier, like life-wise.
I will do that. I think I'm feeling. I went into the game just all excited because like I'm happy here just tilling the land and planting flowers or planting parsnip, but I ran out of parsnip seeds, so I had all this spare land and nothing else to grow. I can't buy more seeds until I get a harvest, and I feel like I'm playing the game wrong. And from the comments that everybody's saying, yeah, your first time you're going to play it wrong.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn from your mistakes and start over and do it right. How long is it? Just 1 year that a game is? Like
I'm on year 7.
Oh, okay. So we'll keep going then.
Yeah. The game essentially goes as long as you want it to go.
Gotcha.
So
I should probably watch some videos and learn some things before diving deep, because I felt overwhelmed. I sat there and I don't know what to do next. Everyone's like, there's always something to do, and I was like, yes, but I don't know what's important and what's not, and what direction to take. And I feel like there's not enough hours in the day to do everything that I want to do.
Well,
I don't have enough energy.
It'll be things like building sprinklers, so you don't have to like manually water everything, or upgrading your sprinkling can. So instead of like individually watering each little square, you can like, I think my watering can, I can water like 9 squares at once.
Oh, nice.
So it's just like water all these, water all these, water all these, go do other things. Like upgrading the buildings around town. Like once you fix those buildings, it unlocks more stuff. So.
Gotcha. Outside of that, I honestly don't know if I'm going to keep going with it. It's not that I don't like it. It's not what I was expecting. I was expecting the
Harvest Moon of old.
Yes, I want to make neat little rows of vegetables, and I want to water them and harvest them and grow and get bigger. And I guess that's part of this game, but there's just so much more going on than I was expecting.
Oh yeah.
So,
but once you kind of figure things out, that game really scratches that Harvest Moon itch for me.
Yeah.
Like I'll pick it up once a week and play like 2-3 hours, just because you get like once you figure out what you're doing, you get lost into that game.
Okay.
So
I won't give up on it, especially since there's nothing new coming out. I got to play something. So outside of that, I also went back to Arkham Asylum a little bit more. That game still holds up.
Yeah.
It's still really good.
I've played it 3 times now.
The actual Asylum, not City?
Yeah, the first one.
It's such a great little Metroidvania, and
yes,
the Joker banter just never gets old, and even just like trying to take down the guys without getting seen by the others is just so much fun. It's a great stealth game.
Even the final boss, how they did it is kind of a little hokey but fun.
Yeah. So that's it for me. CB, what about you?
I have finally recracked back into the newer God of War.
Oh, nice.
And I caught the bug.
See if it.
Yes.
I just made it to Alfheim.
Okay.
And I'm really, really digging how this game plays now.
Yeah.
So
after a while, it just clicks, doesn't it?
Yeah, like it when I first played it, when I bought it, I was like, it's okay. Now that I've kind of started upgrading things and figuring out like what's going on in the story, like I met the witch.
Okay.
And then like went to Alfheim, like used the Bifrost for the first time. I'm really digging the lore behind this game.
Yeah, it's really good.
So
wait till you get introduced to a side character that will travel with you. That might be one of my favorite side characters in any video game ever. And you'll know who I'm talking about when you get there.
Okay.
So it will stand out. Plus, that game had my favorite moment in any video game of that year in its final act. And again, you will know what that moment is.
Probably.
Isn't Christina going through and playing the originals?
She's going through the first one.
She's going through the old ones to the new one. I'm doing the new one to the old ones.
Oh, so you've never played them?
I've never played them. I own 1, 2, and 3, but I really wanted to play the new one, and then I'm going to go back and play the other 3. So
it's a really interesting approach. I wonder if that moment I'm talking about will have as profound of an effect on you as it did me.
Well, I know some of the story behind the first three
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, they've been around for so long that I've picked up pieces here and there. So I have a feeling I know what's coming with something, but we'll see when we get there.
Nice. I'm excited for you to see the end of that game too. It's really good. So, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Gaming Outsider. CB, any parting words or recommendations for the listeners this week?
Just be good humans. Be good peoples.
I like it. Owens, how about you?
Thank you guys for having me in. For Zach, I hope all is well, but I enjoyed recording with you guys this week.
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, dude.
Likewise.
I've got, this is my last week of the Packers Fan Podcast. We recorded episode 201, and now that the Packers are eliminated, we won't have any more for this season. But it was a lot of fun, so be sure to check that out. Also, I got something to recommend. I don't know if you guys like true crime podcasts, but my wife has been bugging me to listen to one, and I finally started listening to it this past week, and it's called Cold. I don't know if you remember the Susan Powell case, Josh Powell, where his wife wound up missing, and then he had a murder-suicide with his kids, and this is a podcast all about that story. It took place like in Utah or in up in the Pacific Northwest. It is fascinating, guys. It is so interesting. And I know I'm a podcast recommending another podcast, and it's 18 episodes long, so it's lengthy, but I'm on episode 9 already. Like this is just that good.
No, my wife watches Snapped and calls it research. I don't think this is a good idea.
She watches what?
Snapped.
I don't know what that is.
It's a true crime show about
women killing men.
Yeah.
Or women committing crime.
Specifically towards significant others.
Yes.
Wow, and she calls it research? I'd be watching my back if I were you.
It's a running joke on this one.
Well, everybody out there, thanks so much for listening. Please be sure to email us if you have any questions or concerns. Our address is feedback@thegamingoutsider.com. Until next week, I'm Scott Clark with Chris Berensmeyer and Chris Owens, and we are The Gaming Outsider. And remember, there's no such thing as a bad game, just games that aren't for you.